You are experiencing the Knuckleheads of Liberty podcast.
It is October 15, 2025, and welcome to the Knuckleheads of Liberty, where we are bringing you the people and the organizations fighting for liberty around the country and in your region. And today we just have myself and Leon talking about some issues. We're going to hit, we're going to talk a little bit about an update with where things are at in the government shutdown. We're going to talk about a bunch of immigration issues because, boy, you can't look at the news without seeing something about that today. And we're also going to talk a little bit about an odd thing that happened with Barry Weiss, too, as she is stepping into her role in leadership at CBS, and kind of a confrontation she had with the union there. And finally, we are going to talk a little bit about, I guess, an education that Don Lemon got on the street during one of his interviews recently during our Knucklehead Noise Patrol. But before we get into that, let me introduce you to the panel. As I said before, it's just me and Leon. So we have Leon, the word Brathwaite, last word in Liberty. He is a retired engineer in the state of California. And my name is Jason McPhee, and I'll be your host today. So we always kick off the show with a quote of the day that we kind of hope ties a little bit to what it is we're going to be talking about. It's usually some kind of quote that makes you think a little bit more about liberty or maybe our lack of liberty, as the case may be. And this time we have a favorite of mine, and that is Walter Williams that we're going to be invoking for his quote. And I think it's because we're going to be talking about immigration today. I think this quote is kind of square on the nose about how we got into a lot of the trouble that we're currently in on this topic. And what he said was, most of the great problems we face are caused by politicians creating solutions to problems they created in the first place. And I think I almost wanted to replace the word politicians, because I feel like that's just a pejorative that takes away our responsibility. And I want to put in government right there, right? It's caused by government creating solutions to the problems that government created in the first place, right? Because there's so many of us who they just want to invoke government for everything, and so many times it's government comes in, creates a problem. It's trying to address some little thing, creates a problem. Then we've got to invoke more government to deal with all the problems that government just created. And it seems like it's a never-ending spiral down that path. What do you think about this quote, Leon? I kind of like it.
I think it's a great quote by Walter Williams. Also is one of my favorite philosophers and economists and authors and all that. I've read quite a lot of his work. I think you said you wanted to replace government or replace politicians with the word government, but really and truly, it's the politicians who work within the government who cause all these problems. I mean, you could argue probably that the bureaucrats are not politicians, so they will escape Walter Williams. Yes, but the essence, whether you use politicians or you use government, the essence of the quote is absolutely correct. That much of our problems in our society, the big ones for sure, are being created by government, and then they come along telling you that they're going to solve it, or they're going to give you this nice, wonderful utopia. I mean, look at the big things that have happened in our society, starting from its founding. Slavery. Government tolerated slavery. Slavery was legal. A government tolerated thing. And the solution of that was we fought a whole civil war to escape the bonds of slavery. And the government thought they did something great when they have been tolerating it for the last how many years since the founding. Then after that, another big thing was Jim Crow. Another government, this one, the government actually imposed upon citizens in the United States, black citizens, that is. And then it took Martin Luther King and his whole movement of freedom to change the dynamics of the whole of Jim Crow laws. But it was government who created that problem, that big, very big problem. Now we look at the inner cities of America, which is I would say is a hellhole in some cases. We have these politicians in Chicago right now, like the governor. He go to some nice area of Chicago and say, "Look how wonderful it is." I don't know what Donald Trump is talking about. This place is great, and you have the mayor who was on a thing with Donald Lamont, who I think we talk about later. Walking up, oh my goodness gracious, look how great this place is. What are they talking about? But they'll never take you to the south side of Chicago. Notice, neither one of these people will take you to the south side of Chicago and tell you, look how bad it is. Okay? All right? But here we have the government. Chicago is managed directly by a mayor and a city council. And they are allowing this city, once a great city here in the United States, to decay. That is what they are doing. They are creating problems. And I'm sure they're going to come along and tell you how wonderful it is with the solutions that they are proposing. And usually the solutions is probably worse than the disease that was there prior. So God help us with these people, these politicians who create problems and then pretend that they're going to give us a nice, wonderful solution.
Well, it's so terrible too is it feels like we get this dichotomy of bad and worse. It's not like there's anything. It's not like there's any really good solutions in here. And this is why I like to say government, because the incentives of government are such that it doesn't really matter for most of the time what politician you elect. I mean, you can get worse, you can get more terrible, but the incentives are such that it's usually going to be the best you're going to get is bad. Right? and then and sometimes you just get downright awful, and we see societies collapse when that happens. But
Sure.
so it just it's just terrible. And I just feel like most people don't get, and a guy like Walter Williams, I think, would tell people that, hey, look, it's not. I certainly know Thomas Sowell would have said this. It's not about the people. It's about the incentives that you set within the system. Yes. And of course, government's incentives are always screwed up, right? Because you're always trying to collectivize things and top down central planning.
But I mean, the main thing here in all of this is that we as voting citizens of the United States, I guess this is true worldwide, but we as voting citizens cannot escape responsibility for this. We elect these people, we put them in there, and in many times we re-elect them after they've shown us what they plan to do. Look at right now what is happening in New York City. New York City is a disaster. Okay, there are some parts of New York City that are great. I love to visit the place, but I will never live in that place. I mean, I don't know what circumstances could force me to live in New York City, but the place is horrible. But there are some parts that are real nice that I do like, I do enjoy. But you know what New York City is about to do? New York City is about to elect this radical leftist socialist. That's what they're about to do right now. This man named Zoran Mamdani. And the man don't even understand the most basic thing about economics. He's telling you that he's going to implement policies that have failed everywhere in the world, every continent and almost every country in the world. These policies have failed, and he's going to implement this. But this time he's going to get it right. That is his thing. Oh, I'm going to set up government-run grocery stores, and I'm going to give you free bus rides, and I'm going to give you free this and free that. And nobody's asking him who the hell is going to pay for all of this. So we as citizens, we as voting citizens are becoming so complacent that we are not holding the politicians, we're not holding their feet to the fire. So we cannot escape, even though I agree with Walter Williams' quote, we cannot escape responsibility for some of the damn nonsense that we see going on in our society. And some of that damn nonsense we are suffering under. I mean, look at the tax codes right now. The tax codes are horrible. And the most productive people in our society are being forced to pay taxes so that we could subsidize the standard of living of the most unproductive in our society. And the government are creating. You just spoke about incentives. The government is creating massive amount of incentives to create more dependency within our society. And this is what is happening. They're creating more and more problems in the process.
Well, I was going to say, Leon, the key is, and you kind of invoked this at one point while you were talking there, but we've tried this stuff before. And why is it that we've tried this stuff and we're not figuring it out? Well, it's because the government also runs our education. And that's the heart of it right there. I mean, the government run education. And the idea that people are going to school and they are not learning this stuff, right? And of course, that's because we let the government run that too. And everything you let the government run, the incentives are going to be screwed up. You're not going to get the right stuff out of it. And that's the worst part of it, the education, because now you have debilitated your own ability to work these problems out. And like you said, it's not like we can't look over to Venezuela, see what's going on over there. It's not like we can't look back at the Soviet Union. Not like we can't look at Cuba. It's not like we can't look at North Korea. It's not like we can't. I mean, even China, to a degree, it's only through reforms that they got better, right? Because they were all starving to death when they were following the same game plan as Russia.
Sure. Yes.
So this is just, it's nuts that we have all these examples and people aren't learning. I mean, we've had these brilliant economists, these, Austrian School of Economists, the Chicago School of Economists, have all these wonderful thinkers out there who can explain to us why these things fail. And yet we just don't learn because, they're not featured at all in the government playbook of education, which is more indoctrination, as we've been finding out recently.
And there are so many recent examples of government failure and politician failure, if you want. There's so many examples of it.
Well, in California, just drive down the freeway and see the hulk of the bones of the supposed bullet train that we've dumped, I think, at least 20 or 30 billion into already, and it's gone so far over budget. I think that's around what it was supposed to cost initially, and now they want like 100 and something billion. And the plans just don't look like they're ever coming together for this thing. And that is a government promise to the people, and all they've done is mire us. It's been over 10 years, I believe, since Jerry Brown started that project. And all we have is this failure, this massive reminder of failure. If you drive down 99 and you're anywhere near Fresno and Bakersfield, you get to witness that failure every day.
Of course.
Yeah.
But I before we close up this topic, I still have to go back that we as voting citizens, we are allowing this damn nonsense to happen. And I don't know what it will take to wake us up to the realities of the fact that we allow these politicians to create these problems, and then we allow them to come and tell us they're going to give us these nice, wonderful solutions. We are allowing this to happen, and we must take responsibility for that.
Yeah, and the only way we do that is first step has to be to get government out of. Do that. If we get government out of the schools, we've got a chance. We have a fighting chance.
Yes.
But if government just keeps indoctrinating every new generation, we are doomed to failure. So that's why, at least for me, education is the most important issue. Get government out of it, and maybe we can reach our potential at some point. So
indeed.
Yeah. Well, speaking of potential, we can't even get the potential to get the government running. It appears we are. Let me bring up the government shutdown clock here. So we are. This is the White House government shutdown clock, and it has been over 2 weeks now. The government has shut down, and the odd thing is that I haven't really noticed it, Leon. I don't know if you've noticed it, but I haven't really noticed it. But we have a little video to show, and this was about some of those videos about a week old because we intended to do it last week, but we just got so buried in talking with our guests that we just didn't get to it. But let's go through this little video because I think it's a little bit instructive about what it is we're missing out on when we don't have government.
It has been a week since the federal government shutdown began, and so far the shutdown showdown between Democrats and Republicans shows no sign of ending.
Today, President Trump suggested some furloughed workers might not receive back pay, warning layoffs could be coming soon if the shutdown continues.
Why do you say some federal workers should not get their back pay? Why do you say some?
Well, you're going to have to figure that out, okay? Ask the Democrats that question. A lot of those jobs will never come back.
So the shutdown has actually been going on for 2 weeks, not just 1 week as indicated in the piece. However, I really haven't noticed much of a difference between week 1 and 2. In fact, I haven't noticed much of a difference with the government shutdown, which is kind of the issue. But let's hear what the news segment had to say about it last week anyways, and go from there.
Congressman Stauber, meanwhile, told us that from furloughed federal workers to disruptions to government programs, the shutdown's impact will unfortunately be wide-reaching.
This is not right. In my opinion, we need the government open so we can function, properly.
Consequences are also being felt in Macon, where the Ocmulgee Mounds National Historical Park remains closed until further notice. That includes the park's visitor center store, a main source of revenue for the Ocmulgee Mounds Association. The group took to social media to address the, quote, urgent financial challenge.
So you saw that park in Georgia is literally just a hill of grass behind a fence. That's all they were showing. And I mean, it's like, do we really need the government open so that people can go to that? I mean, were it not for the government, would people not just be able to walk over and see it?
And as I mentioned, the impact of the shutdown grows with each passing day. New developments today, for example, in some parts of the country, air traffic controllers not coming to work, causing staffing issues and flight delays. The FAA warning of these new air traffic control shortages in some major hubs like Houston and Chicago.
So are you feeling it, Leon?
As far as I'm concerned, they can just stay shut down for the next 2 years. That'll be fine with me. I don't understand what it is they actually do, other than maybe you should go back to Walter Williams' quote that they create a lot of problems and then they give us solutions to the problems that they already created. So they could stay shut down as far as I'm concerned, because much of the federal government, a good chunk of it, serves no purpose. They are of no value to us in society. So they could stay out of our lives as far as I'm concerned. The federal government have gotten too large and too involved into our lives. And the state government, the California state government in particular, have done the same thing in different ways, but they are there also in our lives, destroying our liberties. And this is what the federal government have become very good at. And the California government is following right behind. So as far as I'm concerned, the federal government could stay shut down. We have some people that we need some essential services that we do need, law enforcement. We need the military to stay on their game and all that. But beyond that, I don't know what it is so critical about the government that need to be open. Please stay shut down. Please, I'm begging you. Please stay that way.
Doesn't it kind of feel like when the government shuts down, we see the politicians more often in the TV in front of us? It's almost like a paradox, right? Or something. We think they're going to go away if we shut it down, and instead we get more of them.
More of it.
I almost feel like I wish there was a Stephen King show called Storm of the Century, a movie called television miniseries called Storm of the Century. And in that, the bad guy keeps showing up and he says, "Give me what I want and I'll go away." And I feel like that's all these politicians that keep showing up.
The other day, Hakeem Jeffries, who is the minority leader in the House of Representatives, and this politician, this Republican, I can't remember who his name. So they almost got into a big. Actually, they had some nasty words between them, and they looked like they wanted to get the fist up and get going. But the point is, these guys are sitting there in the halls, in the corridors of Congress, and almost want to get into a fight over a shutdown that they created. Okay, they and their damn nonsense, they created the shutdown, regardless of whether you support the Republicans, you support the Democrats. These people created the shutdown. Okay, and that's what they did. But here we have these two guys, instead of they're trying to figure out some way, if you guys want the government open, I don't care, right? But if you want the government open, you got to figure out some way to sign some compromise, I guess, is what the good word is these days. You have to find some bipartisan compromise. But these guys on the corridor trying to get into a fist fight. For what? For what purpose?
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't get it.
It's how they're going to carve up our wallets, Leon. That's what the fight is about. It's not about, it's usually not Rand Paul or Thomas Massey that's sitting there looking to get in a fight to stop them from carving up our wallets, right? I mean, they're saying, hey, don't carve up the wallets, but I mean, they're not brawling over it, right? It's all the people who want to carve up the wallets instead of the violent ones.
Yes. Talking about carving up our wallets. In terms of the government shutdown, I just wish Trump will get rid of about half of the IRS, maybe 3/4 of the IRS, so they will stop trying to make me poor. I'm struggling right now to finish my taxes, and these people are finding every little creek and every little this and every little that to raise my taxes. Please get rid of the IRS, most of them. Okay, you probably need a little bit to collect whatever revenues you need to collect and blah, blah, blah. Fine, you could do that. But get rid of 3/4 of the IRS, and I'll be very, very happy. Honestly, I would be, because these people are trying to make me poor. That's what they're trying to do right now.
Yeah. Well, speaking of the IRS, there's another government entity that even with the shutdown, they don't appear to be shut down, and that is ICE. They appear to be busy as ever recently. You can almost not avoid it, seeing news stories about it. So let's get a little bit refresher of what's been going on. We haven't talked about immigration on this show for about, 4 or 5, probably, or 3 or 4 months. And so, and this is a sort of a tricky issue for liberty-oriented people because there's sort of issues on both sides of it. But let's at least get a little bit of the state of what's going on. So I'm going to show this video here.
Developing tonight, a new effort in Sacramento takes aim at federal agents who do not identify themselves. The word detainment is now being released with kidnapping by those who witness masked agents grab people from job sites or public spaces. We've seen the cell phone video and heard accounts from people who insist the agents never gave a name or agency. Now, Fox 11 News reached out to the Department of Homeland Security, trying to get clarity, frankly, on a number of issues. The only response was regarding the effort in Sacramento to ensure that these federal agents identify themselves. DHS sent us a statement that is attributed to Assistant Secretary Tricia McLaughlin that basically insists agents do identify their agency but protect their name and face because they're worried about highly sophisticated gangs like MS-13. The respondent, the actual...
So that was a snippet of some ICE raids outside of a Home Depot in Sacramento, just to give you a sense of what it looks like. Let's now check out how this is playing out politics-wise.
Illinois is going to use every lever at our disposal to resist this power grab and get Noam's thugs the hell out of Chicago.
They told us that this was about the worst of the worst. In reality, they are going after anyone who objects to families being ripped apart and community members being disappeared.
Oh, that's Democrats defending the worst of the worst arrested during Operation Midway Blitz. So let's meet some of them and see if Mayor Johnson is correct. This is just a small sampling of those who have been arrested in the more than 1,000 taken off the streets of Chicago. You have this individual convicted of murder, another one, 3 DUI convictions, 2 domestic violence convictions. This individual from Mexico convicted of DUI and arrested for terroristic threats. The list continues. This Austrian illegal violent criminal convicted of sex offender, convicted of sexually assaulting a family member under the age of 6. Another convicted of armed carjacking and robbery. You've got convicted of battery and domestic violence. By the way, are you listening, Mayor Johnson? None of this sounds like innocent individuals who are here illegally committing these violent crimes. It continues. Convicted of a sexual assault of a child. This individual from Mexico convicted of weapons offense and concealing a homicide death. Arrested for sexual assault of a child, domestic battery. And last but not least, you have an individual convicted of multiple counts of domestic battery and strangulation.
So there you kind of see a little bit of how this is playing out. The left is saying, hey, this is Gestapo tactics. And, the right is saying, hey, there's a lot of criminals out there that Biden has let in. And I did want to give a little bit of a visual. We talked about this on the show before, but I think it's useful to understand, I guess, over time, how this immigration issue has played out. So here is a chart from USA Facts, and it shows the number of attempted illegal border crossings this is showing it between 2000 and 2025. So it essentially, the real story here is what happened during the Biden administration, because you can see that, you know, they're talking about during the COVID pandemic, but that also coincides almost exactly with the Biden administration, right? And their policies on the border. And you can see you had varying degrees. It was almost like during the Bush administration, there was more crossings than there were during Obama and, Trump first administration. But then you have the Biden administration, and oh my God, it's like, what happened here? It's the biggest numbers ever during that. And then, of course, once Trump comes back into office, it is almost disappeared down here. So they have almost completely shut down the border for illegal crossings. And I just think it's worth seeing that with respect to understanding the story, because you hear so many different things going on from people. So, Leon, what do you think about this whole story? I mean, clearly and I did want to bring up one more thing too before I bring you in. If you're looking for the libertarian kind of idea on immigration, this is Milton Friedman. We've talked about this quote before, but it's good to invoke him again just to remind people. And it says, "There is no doubt that free and open immigration is the right policy in a libertarian state, but in a welfare state, it is a different story. The supply of immigrants will become infinite." And of course, that's kind of what we've seen when Democrats start promising all kinds of free stuff, don't put any barriers at the border, and suddenly Mayor Eric Adams of New York is saying this issue is going to destroy New York City. What do you think, Leon?
Well, I have a slight disagreement with Milton Friedman. He's one of my favorite economists, probably my favorite. I don't know. I mean, he and Walter Williams and Thomas Sowell have made up the body of my knowledge in my head about a lot of things in society and in our politics and in our economics. But there is an underlying message from Friedman's quote that somehow or the other it is possible to have this free and open immigration, or migration, if you want to call it that, because that condition is impossible. And I've said this before, and I'll say it again. Hold
on, Leon. To find out why it's impossible, if you're watching on public access, you're going to have to come in and listen to us online at knuckleheadsofliberty.com, where we'll continue the conversation. But we're out of time on public access, but go check us out there. Back to you, Leon.
Yes. So that condition, as I was trying to say, is impossible. And the reason why it's impossible is because politicians always look for votes. The whole idea, but right now we see, while during the Biden administration, they open up the border, they allow all of these people, 10, 15 million people, to just walk across the border. They did not do that because out of some genuine concern for their fellow man or fellow woman. They didn't do that out of that. They did that for one reason only. They need votes. Okay? The democratic ideology is dying. Okay, just like socialism died, communism died, even though it's still practiced in some places in the world, and it's about to be practiced.
Leon, I feel like it's like a zombie belief system, because it's always dying and it's always reviving. Right? I mean, how many societies has this thing killed off, and yet it keeps coming back in healthy societies, and it starts, once there's something that you can redistribute from one person to another, suddenly socialism pops up like a disease again to take that society down. Anyway, back to you, Leon.
that is exactly the point. So the politicians is always going to take the most productive people in our society, take away their wealth, then encourage these people to come here to grab some of the wealth they took away from the most productive people in our society. And they will always do that because they're always looking for votes. So this is why I think Milton Friedman is slightly wrong in this statement here, even though he didn't say definitively this is how we're going to do it, but he certainly implies that it is possible to have this condition, or shall we say the libertarian condition, where we have this society, we don't have a welfare state, and people will just migrate and then they'll work and then they'll go back home. It is not going to happen. It cannot happen because those politicians have a very, very nasty incentive to always look for votes. And if they're going to look for votes, they're going to take away the things from the most productive people, and they're going to encourage these people to come here, and you're going to give them other people's stuff. This is exactly what the Biden administration was trying to do when they open up the border, unless 15 million or 20 million or whatever the hell the number is into our society. And I do not understand, worse yet, I do not understand this thing about the left, that they think now that we have law enforcement going after these illegal immigrants. I don't know if that to me is an oxymoron, an illegal immigrant. An immigrant is somebody who comes here legally. I don't know how you could have an illegal immigrant, but anyway, whatever they are, all right? We have law enforcement going after them. And the left is now telling us the law enforcement is wrong to do that. So they're trying to do everything, including attacking them for doing their job, okay? You know, I always wonder why we need to carve out this special exception for these so-called illegal immigrants. Why? If I'm an immigrant, so if I jump in my car and I'm speeding down the freeway, my half-blind eyes, and I'm speeding down the freeway, and a policeman stops me, am I able or can I tell the police officer, you know, officer, I'm an immigrant, you know, so you should give me a break? Am I allowed to do that? Or is some judge going to laugh me out of court if I try to do that? But somehow the other, these illegal immigrants have to have this special carve out. They could get up one morning in Mexico, in Guatemala, or wherever the hell they came from. They walk across our border, and then they could demand special rights here in America. This is ludicrous. Then we don't have a country. So I just want law and order. Okay? I want us to get back to law and order. People want to come here. I have no problem. I am one of them. Okay? I have no problem. Do it legally. That's all I say. Get in line. Do it legally. Excuse me.
I would be just
exactly
a little bit.
Go ahead.
I would be just a little bit careful about the law and order thing. Certainly, I think we both agree that we want, I guess, just the bare minimum of laws, and then let's enforce them and have order. But, you know, President Xi in China will give you some law and order too. So, and that's not quite what I'm looking for either. So I think I'd much rather have closer to what Milton Friedman is talking about when he says the libertarian state. And that's like this almost, you know, a state that we were close to that when the country was initially founded, right? Because it was all about protections for the people. Government was tiny. And we didn't have a problem with immigration then, because it was sort of like, well, come one, come all. We're not giving you anything for free. So, you know, and for the most part, we didn't have a lot of problems with immigration at that time. But it's, as government grows, like you're saying, it corrupts everything. It's drifted way far away from where we started, and very far away from a libertarian state at this point. And I think that's the problem, you know, is that people aren't realizing this, and they're just voting for government to solve all their problems. So,
you know, but Jason, this is just the point. I think you just made my point for me. This is just the point. So we were founded, a country founded in liberty. We had no problem with with immigration, and people were coming here. People coming here in droves. They came through Ellis Island. They came through wherever. There even people came through the Mexican border, and them in those days, they came through. Fine, there was not a problem. But what happened? The politicians started to create incentives for them to come, and they finally corrupt the system where they're taking away from one group of people to give to these people who just came here. Why? Because they're looking for votes, and this will be the process at all times. There's no way, unless you could get rid of the politicians, which in a functioning democracy, well, we are a representative republic, but we use democratic values. In a country such as ours, it's impossible to get rid of the politicians. Okay, and I don't really want to get rid of them. Okay, I mean, I like to get rid of some of them.
I want to get rid of some of them.
Definitely some of them. But the democratic values that we hold dear to our hearts, I think I obviously want to keep them. I just think we put in too much of the wrong kind of people in power. But the point is though, these politicians are always there creating problems. This is what Walter Williams said at the beginning. They're always there creating problems. And it will be no different if we are talking about immigration or we're talking about some other phenomenon in society. They will always create a problem and then come along and tell us we could fix it for you.
I think what it is, and this is the key, and I can't remember for sure if I'm giving the right quote attribution or if I'm even getting the words exactly right, but this is the spirit of it. I think it was de Tocqueville that said that, this experiment will only work until the point people realize they can vote themselves free stuff, right? Once people start to realize that they can vote to take away other people's stuff, that's when the whole experiment falls apart. And quite frankly, I mean, we've gone quite a ways. The experiment has lasted quite a while, but if you look at the debt at $37 trillion at this point, I think
climbing.
Yes. And that quietest vote, because this is the problem. When you vote to take away from somebody else, then those people tend to get angry, right? And they tend to resist. And rich people, a lot of the biggest target to take from. And so they have a lot of money to speak for them, to stop people from trying to take from them. But you know who has the smallest voice? And that's the children, right? And that's who we're stealing from when we take this $37 trillion in debt. We're taking from the quietest voice. We're robbing from the next generations. And it's just obscene. It's immoral. And yet that's where we are. And this is why, I like Friedman's quote, because it's in a libertarian state. And to me, that's the state of morality, the one where we say, hey, look, I don't have a right to take from you and you don't have a right to take from me. And let's try and figure out how to get along, right? That's kind of the libertarian state. That's where I want to get to. And, it would be nice if people could just live by that morality. And I think it's a pretty high level of morality. Then I think we could all really just get along, but everybody just imagines they can live off of everybody else through government.
While I like the idea of the utopian libertarian state, Jason, I don't think it is possible, quite frankly. I really don't.
It's a challenge. Especially, it's not possible when the government is educating everybody, right?
Maybe that's why the government is so heavy-handed in educating everybody, right? To make sure we don't wise up, right? So it's possible.
Yeah. It brings back that quote. I just love that quote from Frederick Douglass, and he said that what was it? Education makes a man unfit to be a slave.
Yes.
That's unfortunately, our government is giving us a faux education. It's giving us an indoctrination. True education is more of the liberal, education of, and I don't mean by the left when I say liberal, I mean, the education in liberty and education in respecting other people, such that, live and let live type of thing, right? That is the education that will help to keep us all free. And sadly, our government education is failing in that. So.
You talk about Frederick Douglass, a related thing that Frederick Douglass wrote about in his book. I forgot, I can't remember the name of the book, but he did write a well-known book. Actually, he wrote 3 versions of the book, and it was the 3rd version that was really showed the real story of what he was trying to tell. But one of the things that Frederick Douglass wrote about, and he was so amazed about, was that at times the slaves from they used to have like one day off at times and that kind of stuff. And the slaves from different plantations used to fight over who have the better master. Physically fight. You think about that. Now, I can't imagine that this would be that any human being would do such a thing. But the whole point of that story, and I don't think Frederick actually made. He probably made it with that quote that he said that education makes us unfit to be a slave. But that story to me shows how the lack of education, the lack of people understanding their own ability to be free, okay, that lack, that efficiency could lead you to the point of such a dark place that you would think that it is okay to fight over someone who is enslaving you, your body and your mind. You know, to me, it was such a powerful lesson of what of the damage the government can do in terms of how they control us and they take away our liberties and then tell us it's good for us. You know, it's really it was really an interesting and powerful lesson that I got from that.
You know what struck me when you said, because I'd never heard that story of Frederick Douglass before, but you know, it does strike me that is the game of the state. It's keeping us turned against each other, keeping us,
Yes.
you know, you go to George Orwell and it's the forever war, you know, keeping us always focused on the other, while the people who are really picking our pockets are the guys who are in charge, right?
Yes.
And
Yes.
and it's you know, I can't help but think, you know, that, you know, we're all fighting over so many little rules and everything else with each other, and yet, you know, it's the people who are really, you know, picking our pockets that are the problem. There's a funny political cartoon I saw years ago, and I think this really in the spirit of what Frederick Douglass must have been talking about, but it shows all these people coming to the king's castle with their pitchforks and their torches, you know, and they all want to, you know, burn the place down. And the advisor is telling the king, he says, the king said, "What are we going to do?" And the advisor is saying, "Well, you got to tell the people with the pitchforks that the ones with the torches want to take away their pitchforks. And you got to tell the people with the torches that the guys with the pitchforks want to take away their torches." Just get them fighting with each other and then you're okay. And you know, to me, that is, you know, a lot of what we see happening, I think, you know, in our government.
You know, when I was growing up, you know, I was probably 12 or 13 years old. One of our history teachers was telling us about the Romans and how they used to go and take over, you know, when they're building the Roman Empire. And one of the things that they always spoke about in that history lesson, and I don't know if it's really true, but it always stuck with me, was that when the Romans go into any place, they will, you know, take over and then stuff like that. But the one thing they always do was to divide and conquer. They always divide the people. I guess just like you, the pitchforks and the people with the torches fighting each other, they divide the people and conquer them. And you know, in a sense, that is going on in our society today. You know, there are such sharp divisions, you know, because the government is so large now, and they're trying to give away so much free stuff. They want to divide rich and poor. They're finding ways, innovative ways of divide blacks and whites, people of different ethnic groups. They're finding innovative ways to divide the Jews and the Christians, and all these sort of things are going on in our society today. And I see the lessons of the Romans here, this divide and conquer, that you get the people who you want to conquer to fight each other rather than to fight their common enemy, which is really and truly the government. Now, I'm not suggesting any violent revolution or anything like that, but I think we should really keep these people who call themselves our leaders, we should keep their feet to the fire a little more. And we should try to shrink government so they could get them out of our lives. Because when they're in our lives, that's where divide and conquer works best.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. You know, shrink government down till you can stick it in a shoebox and shove it under the bed. That's about all the government you need, right? So
yeah.
Now, but you know, getting back to the whole immigration story, I guess, you know, one of the issues, I mean, obviously there's you know, a lot of liberty issues that we just discussed about this with Milton Friedman's quote and all this, but there are problems when you just wind up is essentially throwing open the door and not having any clear rules or standards. And here we have the story about commercial driver's licenses that has been popping up over the last few months, and people getting killed on the roads because suddenly we're playing politics with what the government said were necessary safety standards, but suddenly they're being relaxed because, politics, and we're going to give a little bit to this group at the expense of another group. Let's hear a little video here about some news on the commercial driver's license front.
A devastating scene on the Florida Turnpike last week has turned into a crackdown on illegal immigrants driving in the state of Florida.
Someone that never should have been given a driver's license, much less a CDL license.
Investigators say 3 people died after a man driving an 18-wheeler made an illegal U-turn on the Turnpike on August 12th.
This accident happened because of Joe Biden's failed border policies and immigration policies.
In 2023, Florida passed a law making it illegal for undocumented people to get a driver's license.
And if you have obtained a driver's license from one of these sanctuary states like California, Washington, those licenses are no good here. We have got to protect our American citizens from the dangers of the open border crisis and illegal aliens that may be engaging in behavior that injures people.
So according to this report, sanctuary immigration states are essentially finding ways to give these licenses out to people who probably shouldn't have them. And this is obviously creating a problem. Safety issue. And it's not just citizens who are at risk. Apparently the 3 drivers who died were also immigrants themselves.
We were learning new details about the victims of killed in a crash with a semi on the Turnpike earlier this month. Our news partners at the Miami Herald say the Haitian immigrants were actually traveling to Indiana. Troopers identified Herbie Dufresne as the driver of that minivan that slammed into an 18-wheeler. He and his friends had apparently moved from South Florida to Indiana in hopes of finding work. The driver of the semi, Harjinder Singh, has been charged with 3 counts of vehicular homicide and manslaughter.
So how are these immigrants getting these driver's licenses, these commercial driver's licenses, driving these dangerous vehicles down the road? Well, it appears that in places like California, it may be that the standards are becoming rather lax for the language parts of this, for passing that part of it. And in some places like New York, they're literally just committing fraud in order to get this. There was one person who had a license that literally said no name on it.
Left, but we did have an individual, an illegal alien from India, got a commercial driver's license in New York with no name on his license. How is that even possible?
It's shameful. Yeah, you have these Lanews getting licenses all over the place, and these states like New York, like California, don't even care. And we had that tragedy in Florida about a month or so ago, where 3 people were killed by somebody that got one in California. It's so shameful. We need to make sure our streets are safe, everything is safe, and illegal aliens should not be getting licenses. We need the safest people out there driving trucks and driving everything else.
And not getting CDLs with no name literally on it. Jonathan.
And so there you have it. Let me bring up an article here. Here's an article from the New York Post that says illegal migrant truck driver in deadly Florida crash failed English road sign tests. Oh, there you have it. Despite getting licenses from 2 sanctuary states. And of course, there's been an audits going on now about this, and they've been finding lots of illegal immigrants, I think in the hundreds, who are on the roads who, shouldn't actually have these licenses, right? I mean, they, and, quite frankly, too, a lot of people who are upset about real ID. Well, the whole reason we needed real ID was because states like California started handing out driver's licenses. That used to be a way we identified each other. That was our state identification card. And then that became not good enough because states like California started giving those things to people who they have no idea who they are, right? They came from another country. They don't have necessarily documentation, but hey, they're here. Let's give them a driver's license. And there you go. Back to that Walter Williams quote, most of the great problems we face are caused by politicians creating solutions to problems they created in the first place. So it's just absolutely nuts, in a lot of these cases.
It's just, you get back to Walter Williams, which I totally agree with, but then we get back to my original point, which is the utopian libertarian state is just impossible because we're always going to have politicians who's going to permit things like these things. Now, why was that guy who failed an English test driving an 18-wheeler? Why is another guy who could walk into some department of motor vehicles? I don't know what they call it. I think this was in New York, I believe. I don't know what they call it in New York, but the equivalent of the DMV here in California. Walk in there and walk back out with a license but no name given. How is that possible? How? It's because the politicians in their hungry quest for votes are allowing the standards to slip, and you're seeing all these sort of atrocities occurring on the road. People don't know English and they're driving. People could get a license and there's no name given. What the hell is going on in our society? We have to do something about these things, and we have to stop these special carve-outs in the law. All right, there should be none of them. We have laws. If the laws are not good, we should change them. If the laws are horrible, we should revoke them. But we cannot have people just breaking the law willy-nilly and say, well, I'm undocumented, so I need a little special this or a little special that. No, it can't work. Okay, it cannot work. Because if we could start giving special dispensations to one group of people, why in the hell everybody else wouldn't ask for the special dispensation too? Why? They will. And this is why. Go ahead.
Sorry, I was just going to say, but it begs the question. I mean, government's telling us the whole purpose of licensure and permits and all these things is about safety. And then when suddenly they get a political preference comes up that their party likes for whatever reason, then suddenly safety is out the window, right? And the whole point is, it begs the question: if safety is not the paramount thing driving these things, then why do we need it anyways? I mean, the whole point is we don't need government in these places if even the safety argument doesn't hold up. So.
Yeah. Well, this is just a point, Joe Jason, that hunger for new votes, which is addictive to all politicians, where here in the US or anywhere in the world. That hunger for new votes is so addictive that they don't care what they have to do to get those new votes to come along, whether it's to give other people stuff to these people, to give driver's license to people who should never have them, or any of the other things, or pay for people's housing, pay for them to stay in fancy hotels, pay for their food and all these sort of things. As long as we have these politicians hungering for votes, these are the things that are going to happen. I don't care what kind of state we have here. We could be in a communist state, we could be in a socialist state, we could be in a representative republic as we have here in the United States. It does not matter. Politicians hunger for votes. And if they hunger for votes, they're going to do everything they can to get those votes. Relax safety laws like they do, or relax laws in general. Prevent law enforcement from doing their job at the border. Prevent allowing people to travel on planes where all they have is the piece of paper that the law enforcement, that border agents gave to them. All these sort of things were going on during the Biden administration. Why?
Well, and speaking of which, they talk about an example too, and I meant to actually, I'd forgotten all about this example as I was preparing for the show, but this was a recent story that broke. They literally had the administrator of the whole Iowa public education system, I think it was.
He was the superintendent. He was the superintendent of the school district. Go ahead.
Yeah, and the guy was literally an illegal immigrant. I guess he had overstayed his visa. He apparently lied on a ton of different forms. He was apparently even registered to vote as a Democrat. So, and the Democrats keep telling us this is not about trying to bring in voters, and yet here they have a guy who had no business the job he was in and had no business being here, and he was a registered Democrat. So there you go.
But of course, they'll always tell you, nah, it does not happen. It's just rare instances. It doesn't happen. This guy was in a 6-figure job, I think, or something like that. And he had a rap sheet. I understand he had some issue with he was in Iowa, and he had some rap sheet, I guess, in Maryland or someplace like that, or something like that. And the Democrats will insist us, no, these things don't happen. No, it's just the figment. It's a figment of our imagination that these things occur. It's just unbelievable. But here we are.
And the crazy thing is that once the politics of the Biden's open borders started to come home to roost during that 2024 election that we were having, that is when Biden actually started doing a little bit of cracking down on his own immigration policies. And he actually had, I believe, put out a warrant for this guy at that point. So the point is, somehow they even knew about this guy, and yet, he didn't get caught until Trump came into office.
Yes. That should tell you everything, I guess.
Hard.
Yeah, that should tell you everything.
We're looking really hard for these guys. The guy is in plain sight as a registered Democrat earning $6 figures.
Yeah.
And he was even caught with a gun that he was illegally holding at the time.
Just the other day, I don't remember what state it was. They wanted to remove illegal immigrants from the voting rolls, and I think the Democrats are suing to prevent that. I mean, what? Maybe it's in Virginia or someplace, because Virginia is going to have a gubernatorial election this November. So I think it's in Virginia or someplace like that. That people want to remove the illegal immigrants from the voting rolls, and I think the Democrats suing to stop that process. What the hell is this? Jeez. Oh, God.
I tell you, it's nuts, everything we've seen. But I think this next story on immigration, it drives home the issue that it doesn't, I guess whatever solution you think you're going to get in government, it's never seems to be straightforward, and there always seems to be more problems that it's bringing on. And that is that the guy who is literally the poster child for Trump's administration's enforcement, which is Tom Homan, he is now embroiled in a scandal himself. And it appears that, and this may have been an issue with a weaponized Biden DOJ trying to ensnare him. But the point is, it sounds like he might have taken this money, right? And that is a real issue, whether or not it was illegal or not for him to have done it. Let's go to the video, and we can find out a little bit more about this story.
Tom Homan talking with News Nation about an accusation that he accepted bribe money in exchange for government contracts to potentially be awarded by the Trump administration. This stems from an MSNBC report saying the FBI conducted an operation last year where the agency secretly recorded Homan accepting $50,000 from undercover agents posing as business people. The report said Homan suggested that he could help the agents win government contracts in the second Trump administration. MSNBC saying the FBI and Justice Department waited to see if Homan would fulfill his promise, but the case eventually stalled, and the case was closed after Trump won the election. Homan speaking directly to News Nation's Libby Dean, calling the accusations false.
So this is a disturbing report that a guy who has been lionized by conservatives on leading immigration policy for the Trump administration is now under some suspicion of potential corruption. So let's hear a little bit more about what the administration's take is on it.
$1,000. Well, Mr. Homan never took the $50,000 that you're referring to, so you should get your facts straight, number one. Number two, this was another example of the weaponization of the Biden Department of Justice against one of President Trump's strongest and most vocal supporters.
Here is J.D. Vance getting into a testy exchange with George Stephanopoulos.
The administration.
I'm asking you, did he accept the $50,000 that was caught on the surveillance tape? Did he accept that $50,000 or not?
George, I don't know what you're talking about. Did he accept $50,000 for what?
He was recorded on an audio tape in September 2024, an FBI surveillance tape, accepting $50,000 in cash. Did he keep that money?
Accepting $50,000 for doing what, George? I'm not even sure I understand the question. Is it illegal to take a payment for doing services? The FBI has not prosecuted him. I've never seen any evidence that he's engaged in criminal wrongdoing. Nobody has accused Tom of violating a crime, even the far left media like yourself. So I'm actually not sure what the precise question is. Did he accept $50,000? Honestly, George, I don't know the answer to that question. What I do know is that he didn't violate a crime.
So you don't, what was caught on the tape, you're saying right now you don't know whether or not he kept that money?
I don't know what tape you're referring to, George. I saw media reports that Tom Homan accepted a bribe. There's no evidence of that. And here's, George, why fewer and fewer people watch your program and why you're losing credibility. Because you're talking for now 5 minutes with the Vice President of the United States about this story regarding Tom Homan, a story that I've read about, but I don't even know the video that you're talking about. Meanwhile, low-income women can't get food because the Democrats and Chuck Schumer have shut down the government. Right now, we're trying to figure out how to pay our troops because Chuck Schumer has shut down the government. You are focused on a bogus story. You're insinuating criminal wrongdoing against a guy who has done nothing wrong instead of focusing on the fact that our country is struggling because our government's shut down. Let's talk about the real issues, George. I think the American people would benefit much more from that than from you going down some weird left-wing rabbit hole where the facts clearly show that Tom Homan didn't engage in any criminal wrongdoing.
It's not a weird left-wing rabbit hole. I didn't insinuate anything. I asked you whether Tom Homan accepted $50,000, as was heard on an audio tape recorded by the FBI in September 2024, and you did not answer the question. Thank you for your time this morning.
No, George, I said that I don't.
Up next, we'll be right back.
And finally, here is Tom Homan in an interview with Laura Ingraham, answering more or less the question directly.
Tom, I want to give you a chance to address this article that came out over the weekend, and it was on our always reliable MSNBC, and they said that you took $50,000 in cash in a bag from an undercover FBI agent to help them win government contracts in Trump's second term. The DOJ said they concluded there was no criminal wrongdoing, but nevertheless, that story is out there, and I imagine you want to respond to that.
Oh, absolutely. Look, I did nothing criminal. I did nothing illegal. And it's hit piece after hit piece after hit piece. And I'm glad the FBI and DOJ came out and said, said that nothing illegal happened, nothing, no criminal activity. You're talking about guys spent 34 years enforcing the law. I mean, I left a very successful business that I ran to come back and work for a government again. I'm back on a government paycheck. Not only did I sacrifice my family sacrifices.
So I guess the most disturbing part of this is that except for the Trump White House press secretary, she is the only one who said that he didn't take the money. But even Homan has not directly said that he didn't take the money, which, and then the question is, everybody is saying, but if he did take the money, there's nothing illegal about it, right? Which also is very disturbing. That a government official can take a bag of $50,000 from somebody in a sting and have there be nothing illegal about that. What's your take on this, Leon?
Well, I always like Tom Homan, right? Well, Homan, I guess is how you pronounce his name. But this song's very fishy to me, okay? It really does. It's very, very fishy. And I certainly did not like his answer. I've heard this. I saw this tape before. I certainly don't like his answer. That we dance around it. Okay, there was a little intellectual dance going on there without directly. I took the money. I did not take the money. He never said that. I mean, he never clarified why he would accept money in cash. Right.
And just to hammer home, Leon, the easiest way to diffuse this entire thing is say, I didn't take any money. Right?
Exactly. Right.
If you literally say that, there's no
he did not
story.
say that. Right. He did not say that. So he have left the lasting impression that he did take the money. All right. And then if he did take the money, why are you taking money in cash, a bag, $50,000 in a bag? Why would you do that? That sounds very fishy to me, okay? Like I said, I always like the man. I thought he's doing a great job in terms of trying to clean up some of the immigration mess that the Biden administration created. But if he took this money, it really leaves me with a little bitter taste in my mouth because this sounds very suspicious. very suspicious to me.
Well, you know what's so sad to me is that of all the people that you could imagine being in a scandal, this guy seemed like he was at a central casting as the most kind of honest policeman out there, right?
Yes.
Type of guy. And then to find out that, you know, he may be in some gray area. And I want to be fair to the guy. I mean, if the, you know, because we know that the Justice Department under both Obama and Biden has been weaponized against conservatives. It is absolutely set up through Russiagate and all these other items, you know, the Biden laptop issue, all of these different things was the Justice Department literally working to undermine justice, you know, for these issues. And in this case, Trump, I believe, had won the election at this point, but he's not in office. And it was known that Homan was going to play a role in his administration. And therefore, the attempt maybe by Biden going out the door to potentially nuke him, kind of like what they did in the Obama playbook when they went after a bunch of the, you know, Trump people before they came into office. So this is, you know, a bit disturbing, and maybe there is a potentially honest answer to this. Maybe the way he's answering this is there's some legalese in this because maybe there's some way to explain this. But the problem is if you aren't investigating it and aren't coming forward with a clear story here, then you're just asking everybody to just have faith in your government officials. And I don't think we should ever just have blind faith in government officials.
And that to me is just the point. I don't want to slime the guy, right? I don't want because when you're looking at people like MSNBC and CNN telling this story, you know immediately, you know, their story that started to stink somewhere along the way. I don't want to slam the guy. I don't want to slam
remember
him.
it took MSNBC, it took all these guys like 2 years to realize that the Biden laptop, the Hunter Biden laptop, was real, right? I mean, you know, there's news organizations, they're journalists, and the story is sitting in front of them, and it takes them 2 years to understand, to use their sleuthing abilities.
Exactly. Tell me this thing. Tell me this thing. But the point is, though, if Tom Homan did nothing wrong, as he implied in his interview with Laura Ingraham, I mean, he's still making it song so bad that you making it sound like you actually took money, a bag of cash from an undercover agent, and I don't know how you could explain that in some way that will make us feel good about it at the end of the story. And if there is a honest, simple explanation for why this transaction occurred, if the transaction did occur as stated, if there is some kind of simple, honest answer, please put it out there as fast as possible. Why are you letting this thing hang over your head and then giving people who really admire your work pause when they hear you speak about the matter? I mean,
so you don't think that him explaining it from the back of his new jet ski, drinking a margarita?
No, I don't think that's going to work, Jason.
You feel any better? And to be honest, I don't know that he has a new jet ski. I'm just saying, might be one way we might be able to feel better about.
Yeah, I get the point. I mean, but you see, this is the point. This is the problem. Those of us here who have known this guy for a while, I mean, known his work and all that kind of stuff and things like that, we want to feel good about this story. But then there's this thing in our gut that is gripping onto us and say, you know, this is song right. You know, and when he spoke about it, it's still his song right. I mean, if he'd come out and categorically say, no, I didn't take any money, blah, 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 and that kind of stuff, but then I say, okay, well, maybe there's some kind of made up BS going on here. We didn't do that. To me, he left more questions than answers on the table. So I don't know.
There's one other aspect to this story too. As a libertarian, I find it particularly appalling, or a great example of government not working again, I guess you might say. But if we keep hearing that accepting, you know, the implication is that he took a bag of cash and yet no law was broken. which then implies that our FBI is handing potentially criminals bags of cash that they don't have to return, and no laws are broken, which is insane, right? It's not just absolutely nuts. So this is yet another thing where I just wish, regardless of which side of the aisle on, if you're a Democrat, you must be losing your mind saying, we gave him $50,000 and he didn't commit a crime. I mean, maybe as a Democrat, you should also be thinking, maybe this whole government thing isn't working out so well. I don't know.
Oh God.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just hope and pray that there's a good explanation for this, but so far it's not forthcoming, and I don't know what is going to happen to Tom Homan in the Trump administration. I thought he was one of the beacons in Trump land, but he's not bringing peace and comfort at this moment to people like me. He's not.
Well, I tell you, I did have one other story that I wanted to hit, but I think we'll save it till next time. The CBS thing with Barry Weiss and the unions. It doesn't really go with this whole immigration theme anyways, but I did want to hit our Knucklehead Noise Patrol on the way out. And here we have Don Lemon is getting an education out on the street. He's trying to interview people in Chicago about what they think about all this stuff we've been talking about immigration and the ICE tactics and his local government in Chicago, their response to all this. And, this whole thing of whether crimes occurred or not starts to come up, well, is it a crime to come across the border? And I think let's go to the video on this. And it's a little bit long, but it's because trying to educate Don on anything
is always long. Yes.
Yeah. So let's watch the video here, and you just have to indulge Don as they try and educate him on this.
So people need to understand that, because a lot of them have signs that said no human is illegal. But once you enter the wrong way, doing it the proper way, you're breaking the law. And I think that we need to see both sides of it.
It's not a criminal act, and the president is a criminal, and he's in the highest office in the land. Coming over and being undocumented is not a criminal act. It doesn't.
So we have Don Lemon in Chicago, who was there recently to interview his friend, Mayor Brandon Johnson there. And in the process, he was interviewing a lot of people on the street about their thoughts on ICE immigration raids and enforcement. And he happened to come across a woman who was an immigrant herself from Mexico. And as you can see, they're already starting to get a little bit heated, because I think he thought there was going to be a lot of agreement. Let's see how it goes.
Because you are saying that crossing illegally is not a crime. They're not breaking the law. That's my thing.
It's not a crime.
Go to Japan and try to do it illegally, and I guarantee you,
we don't live in Japan. That's the thing.
Okay, but
you want to live under Japanese rule? That you're making my point. You don't want to live under a dictatorship.
So Don has gotten himself into an argument about whether or not it is illegal to enter the country illegally. And he's already gotten himself into a little bit of trouble because he just told this woman that Japan is a dictatorship when it is not. But let's keep going and see how far Don can dig himself into a hole.
I don't think we're going.
Misdemeanor is not a crime.
Yeah.
So misdemeanor is not
it's
a
not
crime?
A criminal act. No, if you get charged with a misdemeanor, that's not a criminal act.
So why get charged at all then, if it's not a criminal act?
Because we have different levels of crime. Everything is not the same.
So it is crime.
No,
it's just
we have different levels of. I shouldn't say crime, but it's not. It's not a crime. You're not breaking the law. I mean, you are breaking the law, but it's not a criminal act.
So it's breaking the law.
No, you're not breaking the law.
Misdemeanor is not breaking the law.
No.
If you're speeding, drinking, get pulled over, DUI.
That's not a criminal act. Well, no. If you're speeding, is a misdemeanor.
It's a misdemeanor. Right. So still breaking the law.
Okay. Well, if you want to qualify that, we're doing semantics. But what I'm saying, but what I'm trying to tell you is everything is not the same. It's all not one thing.
But is it the law?
What is it? The law that what?
Is it a law to come over legally? Is there a law?
There are rules that processes that you should follow. Yeah. So you're breaking rules. You're breaking the rules, but you're not necessarily breaking a law.
So Don does not know what a misdemeanor is, apparently. All he has to do is look it up. And yes, it is a jailable offense. It is a law. Sorry, Don, rules made by the government are generally laws or regulations. Let's see how much farther Don can dig himself into the hole.
It is a work in progress. It is seeking a more perfect union. It's not that we're perfect. And in order to seek a more perfect union, you have rules that you live by.
He said it himself because of the rules and the laws that we have in place. Exactly. Those rules and those laws are being broken left and right, and people are not being accountable. And it gets to the point where little by little starts growing and growing till it gets to a place where you can no longer live and be safe.
No, I think that
and it's heading that way.
It only gets to a place like that if you have a country that doesn't have a constitution.
This woman is practically a saint. She is spending all of her time trying to educate Don Lemon, and it doesn't appear to be working, although there seems to be a little hope at the very end of that. He mentions the Constitution. Let's watch just a little bit farther and see if he finally gets it.
The way that you and I see criminal backgrounds are totally different. Crossing the border illegally, that's a crime. You don't see it that way, but I do.
It's not a criminal offense.
Okay.
What happens though if you break the rule of crossing the border?
Then someone stops you or whatever, or you get a citation or notice you have to go to court.
Okay, so we've discovered that educating Don Lemon is mission impossible, but he's not the only one. Let's hear what some prominent Democrat politicians have to say on the same issue. Here is Jasmine Crockett.
It is not a criminal violation to enter the country illegally. It's not a criminal. It's a crime. It's not a crime.
And finally, we come full circle with Tom Homan educating Andrea Ocasio-Cortez during her questioning during congressional hearings.
I recommend a zero tolerance,
which includes family separation.
The same as is with every U.S. citizen parent gets arrested when they're with a child.
Zero tolerance was interpreted as the policy that separated children from their
If I get arrested for DUI and I have a young child in the car, I'm going to be separated. When I was a police officer in New York and I arrested a father for domestic violence, I separated that father
Mr.
from his
Homan, with
family.
all due respect, legal asylees are not charged with any crime.
When you're in the country illegally, it's violation 8 United States Code 1325.
Seeking asylum is legal.
If you want to seek asylum and go through the port of entry, do it the legal way. The Attorney General of the United States has made that clear.
Okay.
But this is the crazy thing, right? I mean, these people, they cannot figure out, I guess, even they can't even agree upon what a crime is. And here
Yes.
they were arguing forever about a misdemeanor, and you can go to jail for up to a year in some
Yes.
places for a
Yes.
misdemeanor. I don't know what Don thinks laws and I don't know. I mean, Don has some really weird ideas about what rules. Maybe he just thinks he only has to follow the ones he likes. I'm not sure.
That's right. Exactly. These are people like AOC. Brainless Miss Pretty. They always have their utopian vision in their head. That these people are just the poor migrants and they just come in here and they just want to have a better life and that kind of stuff. No, that's not the reason here. Regardless of if that is the intention, that is not the point. The point is that we have laws on the books. These dumbasses seem to want to ignore, whether it's AOC or whether it's Don Lemon. Don Lemon is just an arrogant, well, I can't say the word right now. He's an arrogant whatever. You fill in the blank. Fill in the blank. Something bad. Okay? And trying to lecture us about what is law and what is rules and it's not a criminal act. What do you mean it's not a criminal act? It's a misdemeanor. Even if it's a misdemeanor, you people go to jail for that. Okay? So what does it mean it's not a criminal act? What does that mean? This is nonsense. We're coming out of these people. These are supposed to be the educated elites in our society. And this is the kind of nonsense they speak. God help us listening to these people.
And just in case you don't know, I mean, it's hard not to know how infamous Don Lemon is because he'd been a CNN anchor for a long time, and he was so terrible they eventually let him go. And he's just been infamous in his stupidity. I mean, some of the things he said out there on the air, and here it's a migrant woman educating him about what the law is.
Tell me this.
He literally doesn't know, and he's running around, just doing all of his journalisming everywhere. No idea what he's talking about.
Why the poor woman takes her time to try to educate him. Then he said, it's just semantics. What do you mean it's just semantics? It's not a criminal act. You crossing the border, you enter in another people's somebody else's country, and it is not a criminal act. Okay, and then you're trying to make this distinction between a criminal act and just a bunch of rules. Well, what is that supposed to mean? You are a real dumbass, bro. Seriously.
Well, and just to let you know too, we edited that video heavily because that conversation went on for like 20 something minutes. That woman kept going round and round with Don about, yeah, but isn't it a crime if you're breaking the law? No, it's not a crime. It's just a rule.
Just a rule. Yeah. God.
Oh,
God help us.
Well, I mean, as a libertarian, I sympathize a little bit because I would like people, as long as they're not trying to get anything for free from somebody, as long as they're not trying to take stuff from other people, I would like us to be able to maximize our ability to move around. I don't like the idea that the government is constraining our liberty. But, and the problem is that it's, this is the problem, right, with the whole entire immigration thing, because if the Democrats would just realize how poisonous their welfare state is, we could solve this problem. I mean, nobody would care for the most part about how many people were coming. And it brings us right back to Walter Williams' thing. The government pushed a welfare state, and now immigration is a massive problem. Right?
Exactly.
I mean, and if it weren't for the fact that, they just said, hey, look, let's just respect other people and their stuff, we can all get along. This is the sad thing.
Yes. It's just, it's like I tell you, Jason, when those people had a hunger for the vote, it's worse than being addicted to crack cocaine. I'm serious. These people need those votes, and they're gonna do anything to get it, and that's what they're showing us right now.
I was just gonna say, I expect a few of those politicians are also doing a little bit of crack cocaine too.
Okay,
yeah.
I have to give you that. I'm going to give you that. Oh, God, Lord.
Sorry, I stepped on you there at the very end. I didn't want the crack to get away.
Good Lord. Oh, Lord. All right, brother. Okay, I'll give you that one. I'll give you that one.
I was like a Democrat politician jumping at some crack cocaine. You put it out there, I couldn't resist.
Okay. Oh, man. This is too much. Way too much.
Well,
I'm sure.
I'll give you the final thoughts here.
Yes. Even Walter was laughing at the crack cocaine here, I'm sure.
Yeah, they these guys, they coming after our liberty like they think it's crack cocaine, and they're just using it all up. And that's the warning that we got to give. I mean, if it's they're coming after our liberty every single, it's encroaching on us, and it's coming a little from both sides too. So you gotta become part of that solution, and not, or else you're gonna be seeing that liberty slip away. Leon, did you have any final thoughts? I feel like I'm stepping on you, but
what did you have final thoughts about, the crack cocaine or the immigration problem that we have? Which one?
I don't know. Whatever you wanted to leave everybody with is your final thought.
well, okay. If I could get serious for a moment, I am totally opposed. Well, first of all, I totally agree with Walter Williams' statement about politicians or government creating problems and then coming along and trying to tell us that they have the solution to it. I think Walter Williams put that in a very nice and succinct manner, and I totally agree. I do believe, though, that the libertarian state of where people can freely move between countries is an impossible condition. And even though one of my favorite economists have made that case. I do think it is an impossible situation. It's an impossible condition or impossible state of affairs to achieve. I cannot see how it can be done because, unfortunately, the politicians are addicted to and they hunger for votes, just like a crack addict is addicted to crack cocaine. So you could never get to that state, that utopian state of people freely moving between countries, say the United States and say Mexico. I don't think you can ever get there. That to me is impossible.
Well, and with that, I think that's about our show for tonight. So thanks so much for tuning in. And until next time, think about what you can do to advance liberty in your community. And until next time, stay tuned and stay free.
Oh, yes, indeed. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, always and forever.
Thank you for listening to the Knuckleheads of Liberty podcast. Find us on Facebook, Rumble, YouTube, your favorite podcast network, and at knuckleheadsofliberty.com.